I'm going to pretend I'm just an average guy listening to this show, and I still don't know what to do or say because I actually feel that way right now. So... Welcome to the Ancestral Mind Podcast. I'm talking at one speed to appease my guests here, where all things we cover are ancestral health perspective. We want to help you build an ancestral mind so you can think about the decisions you make on a daily basis while considering the first principles of what makes you the sexy human beast of an animal, the mammal that you are. We're here to wake people up to the mismatch of our current environment so we can hopefully reverse the trend of our declining health currently overtaking our species. Brent, welcome. And we're here with Ebony as well.
Yeah.
Everybody say hi.
Hello.
So Ebony Kenney is a dating and sex expert and dating coach. And we're going to talk about everyone's favorite topic, relationships. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about sex. But I really want to talk about relationships and the dynamics that we find in our current modern world and how we have all these status quo and all this dogma and all these beliefs built around how relationships should be and how a lot of it's mismatched to who we are as humans and how we used to live in the wild when we lived as small bands of hunter-gatherers. And so we're going to get into that today. I'm excited. Are you guys excited?
Oh, I'm super excited.
You got to introduce yourself, Brent.
I don't even know what my title is. I get fired every episode.
Yeah. And well, we rehired Brent on as a producer, so he's back.
So, what I was going to say is I want to learn about Ebony's origins. Why is she a sex expert? I need to know this before I start asking questions. So, what are the qualifications here?
Well, I have a ton of experience. My path has been a very arduous and long journey. Growing up as a female, we are taught to feel ashamed about anything any sex feelings, anything like us as a sexual beings. Like it's supposed to be like, no, like you shouldn't do that. Cover up. Don't do this. Don't have pleasure. You should be ashamed for all of that. So my journey started there and I really felt good. And I felt a lot of shame associated with feeling really good. And I dove into a lot of unhealthy habits and relationships until I met someone that kind of played catalyst for me to realize that I am allowed to be a healthy sexual being. And in fact, it behooves me, my partners, my family, my friends, for me to be a sexual, healthy, radiant being who shows up because it bleeds into other areas of my life. And so I shed a lot of the shame that was associated with me as a woman and being a sexual being and dove into educating myself. And I've always been the person that my friends and family and complete strangers come to for advice regarding sex, dating, everything.
So paint us a picture for what this timeline looks like.
Oh, wow.
I mean, you're 30. Actually, I don't know how old you are.
Wow.
Or how young you are.
We're really going to put age out there?
I'll be 36. Hey,
36.
I'm not ashamed.
Yeah.
Don't crack, okay?
This is a shame-free zone,
yeah.
Okay?
I'll be 37 in April. And yeah, it's still kind of an ongoing battle, right? You have societal pressures of what you should or shouldn't be. So for me, it's like having to check myself. But I really totally stepped into who I was as a woman and as a human being fully, I want to say when I was 28.
Okay.
So this
what
is
did you
still
do?
Relatively new.
Yeah. So, and you've obviously had a path since then because that's almost 10 years.
Yeah.
So there's probably been a lot of ups and downs. What was a turning point and how did you live your 20s and how did that change? Just kind of paint us a picture in the simplest way possible of what that timeline looks like. I
was dating. And I knew that I did not want to be in a monogamous relationship. And
what age did you realize that?
Well, I think I realized it early on, but a lot of society, I was being dishonest and I was cheating and I found myself making commitments I couldn't keep.
To try to appease the status.
Right. I was giving something of myself that I thought somebody wanted from me, even if it wasn't what I wanted for myself. And
so in your 20s, it was a lot of dating and cheating and doing whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Talk about your lifestyle. I mean, what was that like as well? Because didn't you have a period of time where money was kind of thrown into the mix and confused a lot of things?
When I was 25, 26, 27, actually, this was what led me to kind of the realization of what I wanted and didn't want in a relationship because a lot of women think that, hey, if I date this really wealthy guy, I'm going to have it all. And I started dating a guy who really was handing me everything I thought I wanted on a silver platter. And I'm a single mother of 2 children. And so I was like, hey, this is fantastic. And then I realized that as much as I cared about this guy and I really respected him, he wasn't someone I found myself being with on that level. And the money wasn't everything for me. And it took me getting everything I thought I wanted to realize what I actually wanted. And that's when I started showing up in all of my relationships, like, completely honest.
Well, what did you have to do, though? Because you had to probably create some kind of line, or you maybe even had to break off that relationship completely to be able to, like, really kind of detox. 'Cause, I mean, you had a lifestyle where you basically didn't have to pay for anything. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had a lifestyle where I didn't even... He lived in Miami, I lived in Fort Myers, and I never drove. Like, he would either send a limo to come get me and the kids, or he would drive over and get me, because he said, you're a queen. You need to be taken care of. This is, there's no excuse for you to be dating broke guys. Like, he said all of these like things in my head, where it was money first and everything else was second. So it was a transactional relationship, which all relationships are transactional. Yeah. But the primary focus was money. And so I got accustomed to that lifestyle, got accustomed to traveling a certain way, and I had personal shoppers. It was
so
I feel like you need to try that to really understand how much it sucks. I'm willing to try that. Is this person maybe gay a little bit? Like, I'm available.
Maybe you could find a rich lady that can do that for you, Brent.
You're right. I thought I had an in right here.
So I actually have questions about this specific. I always wondered what this was like, because I think for me as a guy, obviously I think differently than you might have thought. But part of me is like, well, that's amazing to have your things paid for, because like I work for my money and it's hard. It sucks. Like, making money times can really suck, right? So someone paying for all my stuff, some days I feel like that sounds like the most amazing thing ever. Right. So if all you had to do, and obviously some relationships were probably built on like a sex reciprocity type of thing. Right. But I know that there's guys that will really pay for females to just like hang out with them.
Yeah.
Right. And so, but it seems like that never lasts. It seems like there's always something that's a little incongruent or disconnected that doesn't last. But for me, I'm like, if I had like just a female friend and she wanted to pay for all my stuff and I just had to hang out with her sometimes, like, that'd probably be okay. Yeah. Right. So what was the breaking point, or what was the thing that caused the resistance so that wasn't a sustainable thing?
Okay. In high school, I got voted, everyone gets like, voted best dressed, most likely to succeed. I got voted biggest flirt. Okay. I am just naturally, have always been just very charismatic, and I flirt with men and women. Like, I just think it's a natural way to communicate with people to make them feel really good. And it makes me happy. And for me, it's like breathing, right? He was so insecure. Like, I had to be careful. Like, when we would go out to eat, I had to be careful if I made eye contact with the server too much, because he would think I was flirting. I used to have a stalker. So for me, I watch my surroundings. So when people come into a restaurant and I'm eating, I watch the door. So he would think that I was like always on the lookout, another boyfriend, right? And he was older. So the age definitely played a role in his idea and how he was showing up. But it just became way too much.
He tried to dictate your life a lot?
Yeah, I couldn't be myself. I found myself dimming down my own light in order to please him.
Right.
Yeah. And it still wasn't enough.
Yeah.
So, and I just realized, I said, well, what am I giving up really? Like, what am I showing my kids? Like, the cost of who I am as a person is worth it because this guy's giving me money? Like, no.
Yeah. Think about that from the transactional relationship too. Even though it's not strictly transactional, if you are a boss and you're paying an employee or whatever, and then you find out that they were at a competing business that is in your exact same genre, and maybe we're seen talking to the manager, you're going to get all like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. And you're going to think, even though like, you trust your employee, you don't think they're going to leave.
Because it's transactional. That's what comes with being transactional. That
had to be part of it.
There's always something else that goes with the transactional relationship, like certain expectations. And I think that is... Well, and we're going to get into this, but that expectation that's based on like what society says we should do or should act or how we should think or whatever, that causes the downfall of a lot of otherwise good relationships. Okay, so Ebony, you broke from that relationship because you didn't like who you were becoming. And then you got more in touch with your sexuality. You got rid of some of the shame. Like, what was the next step in that process? And then we're going to quickly, after this, we're going to summarize this. Then we're going to get into some of the ancestral perspective, some of the mistakes people make in dating from guys and girls. I want to really get into that stuff. So
yeah, I think for me, like being in that relationship, I realized that it kind of just, it touches on exactly what we're going to talk about next, which is societal pressure. Like as a woman, like I thought this is what I'm supposed to want, right? Like this is every girl's fairy tale.
Like being taken care of for money, being treated like a princess.
Yeah, of course. So I thought if I have that, then naturally the rest of my life will fall into place and I'll be super happy. And I felt super empty.
Yep.
So it helped me realize exactly how I want to live, how I want to show up for myself and for others. And I realized that the number one thing I wanted to be was honest. And that led me into some very healthy relationships with my friends, with my children, with myself, and with lovers. Like it was mind blowing.
It's almost like you had to go through that whole experience to really almost wake up.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's like I see this so often from people that like younger, they get married right out of college or even out of high school, and I'm just like, oh man, like you haven't even had any experience, like you don't know what you're doing, and
you don't even know who you
I don't
are.
I don't want them to fail, but I'm just like, part of me is like, they're going to. It's almost like built into the freaking system, right?
What are the odds you found the one person that is compatible with everything with you in high school?
My daughter is 17, and she has been calling me like the romance killer for like 3 years because she's like, "Ma, why do you always have to shit on me about this stuff?" Da da da. And I'm like, Jaden, I'm just trying to like
prepare you.
You're setting yourself up for failure by thinking it's going to be this Disney fairy tale, la la la. I'm like, what no one shows you after they fall out, like right off into the sunset, is all of the hard work that goes into it and the reevaluating and the growth. And what if you guys grow in two separate directions? Like there's that. At 16, 17, 18 years old, really up until you're like 25, 26, your identity becomes finding someone, being in a relationship.
Yeah, external validation you seek. And so this is what I'm curious about because, I'm a new father now, 6 months old.
Woo!
And so I'm like, part of me, I always, in my mind, I play out these pictures of what it's going to be like when he's older. And if we had a girl, I would literally probably be doing this more because, with girls, you want to like really make sure they're okay.
Yeah.
But with him, I'm kind of like, he'll figure it out, right? Because I had to do it, right? But I still visualize myself kind of like trying to let him have some of that young, naive kind of like hopeless romantic, right? Is that what it's called? Hopeless romantic?
Yeah.
It's been so long. I used to actually identify
it's legit hopeless. I don't know.
I used to identify myself as that, but it's like
ignorance is bliss, right?
And it's like, how do you balance that? Because even with someone like Jaden, it's like you want her to, be young, have fun, like do those things, but almost like you want her to hurt at the same time because that's where you learn.
Right.
And it's almost like if she doesn't hurt at some point, if she doesn't struggle, she won't have the growth. So how do you reconcile that? I mean, I guess you can try to give advice, but then you kind of have to like take a hands-off approach and be like, the rest is up to you,
Yeah. So the best example for this is, so Jaden and I my two kids, Jaden and Cade, boy and girl, 17 and 14, we are a very open and just accepting family, and nothing is off limits with what we talk about. And so the three of us will talk about sex and dating as a family. Like we sit down together as a unit and talk about different things. I knew exactly how much the type of sex that Jaden was having when she was 15, like when she was like making out and, and so when she lost her virginity, she literally called me 10 minutes after and was like, "Hey mom, I have something to tell you." And I guessed, and she's like, "How'd you know?" And like, I wasn't home, but she told Cade, and Cade said, "Congratulations," and gave her a hug. And I'm like, fuck yeah, that's how I know I'm doing parenting right, because stepping into your role as a sexual being shouldn't be something that's considered shameful.
Yeah, it's not, oh my God, what have you done?
Well, this is a good segue because I'm going to ask you now, if I'm listening to this show and I have kids, I'm raising them, or I've either raised them or I am going to raise them.
Right.
And I have a lot of these traditional values that all of our parents probably pretty much had, right? Because these were societal norms.
Right.
There's a lot of people that would hear this type of stuff and say, "Your kids are having sex at 15? How dare you? Shame on you," and give all that shame bullshit that we're not for here, but it still exists, right? So what would you say to those people that would try to shame you for that?
Well, so notice I said the type of sex she was having at 15. She didn't lose her virginity until she was 17 and like 3 months. She just lost her virginity.
It's almost a byproduct of the fact that you have been open with her because she probably would have been pressured into having that, right? And then
she had the space to explore and know that she could come to me and get advice, and I wouldn't give her the knee-jerk reaction as a parent, which
of saying just no, right?
And cover up. You should be ashamed of yourself. Not in my house,
Yep.
So she had the space to know when she was actually ready to have sex. So she did that on her own. And because she was able to come to me, here's what I think is so exciting for me as a parent, and like this be realist and don't fall in love with the fairy tale idea. She had been with this boyfriend of hers for like a year and a half, and they had long distance. He was in California, she was in Austin. And I was like, I really do not want her to lose her virginity to this kid because she's so in love. They broke up. She started dating a new guy. And I was like, they are never going to work. I hope this is the guy that she loses her virginity to. And it ended up being that guy. And it was the best thing to ever happen because she had sex and it was healthy and they were happy. And then they broke up like 2 months later. And she was like, oh no, it's, she was totally detached from this idea that virginity was something that she gave to someone else. It was just her entry into her world as a sexual being. And so now she's detached from this idea of like, she still has this idea of sanctity within sex, but it's different because now the sanctity of sex is not attached to what a relationship should or shouldn't be.
Yeah, it's super smart. I had a question when you said you didn't want her to lose it to the person that she might have been in love with. Did you do any like Machiavellian tactics or like, little finger Game of Thrones stuff behind the scenes in the shadows that might have pushed in any? She
might have made comments here and there, at least,
Yeah, I for sure made comments. I don't hold back, and I'm a smart ass. Clearly, Jaden would for sure. She'd like roll her eyes and be like, "Mom," and because he was kind of stupid, and that was another thing. And I was like, he's kind of an idiot. I'm like, the thing.
And if worse comes to worse, you don't want idiot babies.
Well, that's what I said. I was like, really think about like.
It is. It's the risk. No, it absolutely is for sure.
So yeah. I mean, but she said that she was happy that it went the way that it did. I love that we're like, hi, Jaden.
Yeah.
So what?
Sorry.
So what?
We totally have consent. It's cool.
What advice would you give parents? And like, when did this start? Like, did you start them off when they're like 12 and 13 and you just like started like talking about these ideas, broaching the subject, telling them it's okay? Like, did they start watching like movies at a young age? Did they start cursing? Like there's obviously different timelines for different parenting styles and different kids and whatever. And obviously now today it's a lot different than it was even 15 years ago with just pop culture. I mean, kids are here's what I think to parents real quick. And then I want her take on this. Kids already know everything you're going to tell them or ask them. They're also going to be incentivized to lie to you. The more you try to paint this like strict, don't do this, follow my rules picture, you're just literally pushing them to the very thing you don't want them to do. Yeah. And so it seems like the fact that you were open with her almost made it so that she kind of experimented a little bit and then push off losing her virginity. I mean, 17 is pretty late. I would say probably even
for this day and age.
Yeah, for most kids, it's probably at the later end of the bell curve, right?
Yeah.
And so it's hard to tell. We don't know how much of that is a byproduct of your parenting style. I would, if I had to guess, think the openness is probably directly correlated to her doing that later.
For sure. I mean, I talk to them about sex probably at every age, right? But not like, hey, you're 3 years old and hey, this is a penis. This is going to go inside a vulva and this is how it happens. No, it was very like, oh, like, how do you feel? Like, I remember a specific conversation when Jaden was 7. We were talking about one of her best friends and she like she just told me that she felt like she wanted to hold hands with this girl. So to me, that is a topic about sex, right? I'm planting the seeds for her that it's okay that she can talk to me about any of this, right? It's age appropriate sex conversations. And that's what I've had with both of my children. And I've had individual conversations with them and then I've had group conversations with them. That way they know that there's no shame associated with any aspect of it. And they can show up 100% as themselves and be like, no, you don't get to shame me. This is how I'm showing up.
Yeah, I really want to explore this topic, but I want to also get to some of the other things we have. So I think we're going to have to do a follow-up show. And this is the call to action for everyone listening right now. I want you guys
Maybe we'll go on your show.
I want you guys to send us an email to either ancestralmind@gmail.com or info@wildfoods.co and let us know if there's any of these different, if you have questions or different rabbit holes you want us to go down with Ebony. We will bring her back on the show and we will also link to her show when we get that going because that's going to be launching soon. And we will cover, I mean, really, all these topics could be their own show. That's really what it comes down to, like kids, sex, dating, whatever. But I want to get into some of the ancestral point of view for modern day adult relationships.
But first, Colin, this episode has been brought to you by Wild Foods Co. Real food, real ingredients. Check out wildfoods.co and use the code AMPodcast12 to get 12% off your order.
You're getting good at that.
I'm getting better.
You're getting better
I should just record that and have a drop, but I don't.
I know. No, I kind of like how we freestyle each time because I'm like, what's Brent going to say this time?
I love that. He's like, wait, hold on. But first, Colin.
Well, I was probably going to get to it at some point, but this episode is sponsored by Wild Food, so we do have to give these credit. But again, adult relationships, because this is obviously, our audience is going to be adults, and this is going to apply to everyone. And everyone, when it comes to relationships, has a different background, has different stories. There's a lot of similarities, right? A lot of us make the same mistakes, and that's what we're going to explore. What are those commonalities? What are the things that we all tend to do from a kind of society perspective, a status quo, what's expected, but then also evolutionarily, and what are the human gene, the human body, and like human relationships, like where we came from and how we're designed. And like, so I want to explore that a little bit. I guess the best way to go with this, and again, feel free to offer suggestions. We're kind of going off the cuff here, but I want to talk about some of the top mistakes that people make in relationships, and then maybe we'll see where that goes.
Okay. So one thing that I see a lot is people are constantly looking for their other half, right? Like, you're not half of a person. You're an entire person.
Oh, so you mean if you're single and you're like seeking a relationship?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's focus on that then. If you're single and we see this a lot. People think that it's going to make them happy or it's going to like fill some hole in their life, right? And then so let's talk about some examples of what that looks like, and then maybe some ways to actually fix that and how we should really think about it.
So a lot of people, and this goes for men, women, everyone, right? A lot of people show up on dates, like on a first date, and they like find themselves imagining what life would be like with this person, right? And they go into la la land and they put all this pressure, undue pressure on themselves.
Overrated movie, by the way.
And undue pressure on themselves and on the other person, unbeknownst to the other person, that all this pressure is happening. And every decision that they're now making is like a life or death decision, right?
Yeah, it's colored by their bias.
Yeah. Instead of just being like, do I even like this person?
Yeah.
Is this person even going to be someone I want to talk to next week?
Yeah.
Let alone in 10 years. But people find that like they get in these situations and then they're like, oh my God, I could totally see myself with this person.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, why?
A lot of that's also built on any ideas or data they have before even meeting the person. Right. Like their profile or their friend that talked about them and said, he makes this much money, does this or whatever. It was really funny or is really this. Right. Like you get a lot of these things so that you show up and you already have a picture in your head. And so here's the thing that I see is like you paint this picture in your head and then you're either looking for things to confirm or disconfirm that image. And at some point, you're going to be let down because your picture is not reality in any way. So you're always going to you're kind of setting yourself up for failure in some way. And so what is a better strategy? Obviously, we need to stop thinking too long-term, being too obsessive. I think guys and girls do it. I think guys might be a little bit more focused on the short term and like, wow, you know, I like what I see and I want to touch it or whatever.
Yeah, men are visual and physical beings.
Right. So we're maybe a little less like that.
Yeah.
But I know not only from experience, but also from a lot of having guy friends that guys also think about the long term. And a lot of times guys just want a girlfriend and they want to like have the comfort that comes with that. And so you always hear these stereotypes that guys don't want relationships, but I think that's complete and utter bullshit. Yeah. And what I've been seeing a lot of articles and data showing that now in the whole dating space thing, because women have kind of an unlimited choice through all these apps and whatever, women are actually less likely to commit nowadays than guys. And I don't know like how exact those numbers are, but you're seeing that more simply because women just don't have to. They can literally have a new guy every night if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Well, nobody has to.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, it seems like the scales are shifting a little bit.
Yeah, that's the thing about dating nowadays and like what technology has done to us as a whole in society is that now we have the opportunity of choice, which is also
too much choice.
It's a negative, right?
Yes.
Because what happens is like people have one eye on this current relationship and one eye on everything else and trying to like, oh, maybe there's going to be bigger and better or here's like, I'm not going to put all my eggs in one basket, but I'm not going to tell any of my, you know, my partner's lovers, anyone I'm dating, I'm not going to be honest with them. So I'm going to be dishonest and tell them like, yeah, it's just you. But then I'm like, you know, still on Bumble or Tinder or whatever it is, you know, and being completely dishonest. And like, for me, that's the biggest thing is like, people don't know how to show up honestly. And because of so many options of choice with everything from like what we wear to what color our hair is to who we go to coffee with, to who we date, to who we have sex with, we don't know even what we want or like anymore. We're unsure. We're just kind of like going through this like, yeah, sure, okay. We're settling in spots where you should be like more definitive and define what you want more and be able to hold fast to that without kind of like veering off so much.
There's so many things to go into right now. Let's take a moment to step back and think about this. So one thing that came to my mind was just how to approach dating more from like an internal kind of perspective instead of I would say maybe have better goals, not focus so much on the other person, and like you said, know what you want.
Yeah.
But then there's like the paradox of choice and how we have these infinite options. So we're always kind of stuck in FOMO. We're always stuck in grass is greener syndrome. And I've even noticed this myself in my life, and I've always thought, like, I have my own personal beliefs about monogamy and stuff, but I've kind of always, like, even just in my mind, to have the option of having something else, even though I now have a child, just kind of convincing myself that I'm not like 100% committed to only one person, right? I'm committed, but in my mind, I feel like I'm not only committed to one person. It gives me, even though I haven't acted on this, it gives me a little bit more of a mental break so that I don't fall into those traps of like, oh my God, what would it be like if I was this person? Or, oh my God, that. And so literally for me, my life, that has been the number one thing that has been able to help me paradoxically actually be committed, but not feel trapped or feel FOMO or feel grass is greener. Like it's insane. And I don't really know the answer. And obviously it's still unfolding, but
that's the irony of choice, right? Like when you choose to be in your relationship every single day, when you recommit and you're with someone who's choosing you every single day, and they're also choosing to be in this relationship with you, knowing that you need the space to be your own person, right? So that's why it's so ironic, because people look at choice as like, oh, there's so many choices out there, right? But when you choose to be in a relationship with someone and you choose to let that person show up and be 100% on their own, you're giving them the space to recommit to you every single day. And when you recommit, you're less likely to have this fear that you're missing out on something or that you need to veer off. So I'm polyamorous, right? And so for me, it's like when I choose to be monogamous for a time, it's like because this is what I want. This is the space that needs to happen. And when I give when my partner communicates with me that this is also what they want, and when we give each other the space to do whatever it is that we want, we end up we end up doing a lot less than what people think we do, because now we are sure we want that. Like now there's no, yeah, sure, I guess, because the opportunity's here. Okay. Now every decision is fuck yes.
So what's poly?
So it's multiple relationships, but it's all about connection, right? So polyamorous literally means many loves. And so for me, I'm now single. So I have nothing.
If you were
nothing, so I have one lover right now.
if you were in a poly relationship with like two people,
right?
Well, I mean, what does that look like? Like, do they have to be poly? Can they be like monogamous to you if they want?
Yeah,
but again, it's not really based on expectation. It's based on a lack of expectation.
Yeah. So really, every relationship, every person, the two people in that individual relationship have to do what's right for that relationship. So a poly relationship, for me, I've been in multiple poly relationships, and every single one of them have been completely different. Not one is exactly the same. Expectations are not the same. The way we communicate, the way we show up for one another, it's different. Like you have to, I've met someone and I've been a poly person and had lovers when I met this person, and then decided within like 3 months, like, oh, I only want to be with this person right now. And like all of my other relationships went to the wayside, and that was it. And that was just me acknowledging where I wanted to put my energy. And that was what we did. We acknowledge what we wanted, and we reevaluate every step of the way. That way we both are getting exactly what we want in the relationship.
Yeah. So two things. One, paint for us the picture of what the most common, like most people think poly is like orgies all the time.
Oh my God.
Right.
I know.
Like that's the number one thing.
People are like, oh, so you like fuck whoever you want?
Exactly. Right. And so definitely explore that and like kind of unpack that. But then also I feel like, just a side note on what you said, I feel like when you made the decision to be monogamous with this other person and that person made it too, it was not based on anything external. Like it wasn't saying your parents didn't say you should do this, society didn't say you should do it. Right. You weren't fitting any social norms or anything. You were literally like, I just want to be with this person. That's it.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a more empowering way to be in a relationship. Yet it seems like most people, that's like a secondary consideration.
Right. So it was just literally exactly that. Me looking at this person, and we just realized like, and it was me telling him with no expectations of him reciprocating. Like it was just, hey, like here's where my head's at right now. I don't even care where your head's at right
Yeah.
now. I'm just letting you know that my energy right now, I only see myself focusing my energy in myself, my children, and you. And you can do whatever you want, you know? But that's the thing is like, I'm not saying things for seeking reciprocity.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not being like, oh, I said I love you. Now I expect you to say it. Like, these are gifts I'm giving. I don't expect a gift in
Yep.
return. Right? So anything that I tell or do or say or anything, any act is because I want to and nothing else. That's it.
So one thing that I noticed you say there is that you were single.
Yeah.
Now, listeners, if you wanted to reach out to Ebony, where would they do that?
You can find me at ebonykenney.com
Or
uncagedwithebony.com.
Okay, those were unrelated. I'm sorry. They popped into my head at the same time. Please continue.
So, Polly, you just having orgies all the time, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so it's ironic is that when I became polyamorous is when I started to have the least amount of partners ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew every day what I wanted. I became more defined in who I was and how I was showing up and what I wanted in partners. And I started to communicate more and talk more openly during the sex I was having with partners I already had once I became poly. And I realized like some of them just naturally weren't a fit anymore. Once what I wanted started to shift in the fact that I wanted something honest, once I started focusing on honesty and communication, some people just fell out of my life because they were unable to be honest and communicate in a way that is, you know, behooves people, all the people involved. So, but yeah, poly for me is I've had a primary, and that's when we are in it together as two individuals creating a new unit, and we have extra relationships or a relationship.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't.
Yeah, maybe we do, maybe we don't. I just got out of a relationship where we were off and on for 4 years and both poly, and we were primary, and I would say half that time we were completely monogamous.
Mm-hmm.
And that was by choice. Every single thing that we did was by choice.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing I like about just the poly kind of mindset is one, it's the most evolutionary, ancestrally appropriate, right? And we'll get into that in a little bit. But it also lets you focus on like, what do you want? And each person should focus on this. Like, these are my decisions. And this isn't based on anything outside of myself. It's not based on me trying to please you or you trying to please me.
Right.
It's not based on you trying to please your parents or me trying to please my parents or whatever, or friends or whatever. Right. And it just seems like there's less baggage that comes with it when you're just like, I can choose to have someone if I want.
Right.
But what I've actually seen is like, and I've heard a lot of people talk about this, is like they go poly and they just end up like wanting to spend more of their time with one person.
Yeah.
Right. And like that might fade or you might change eventually, but at least it's still as real as it's going to be when it doesn't have all the baggage of expectation around it.
Right. I feel like poly is like you finally have given yourself permission to focus your energy exactly where you want to.
Well, and to be honest in the matter, right?
Yeah.
Like most people just won't. Like you can find people that would never tell their significant other that they're attracted to other people.
Oh my God.
Like even though we all know we all are, right?
I can never, like, I do not understand how people are like, oh,
How
like I
like-
want to be the only one. And I'm like, first of all, unhealthy.
Yeah.
Second of all,
Narcissistic.
unrealistic. Yeah. like, please, like when you showed up on your first date with your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, whomever it is, right? Were you attracted to anyone else on that day? You were attracted to a lot of people. It doesn't stop just because you're in a relationship. And it's unhealthy to think like, and to punish. Now you're like telling your partner like, oh, I want you to tell me I'm the only one that you are attracted to. Like now you're asking for like
Them to lie to you.
unrealistic expectations. Yep. You are asking to be lied to or to get an answer you don't really want. And there's this idea. So for me, when I talk about poly, I'm like, it's not always about like people are like, oh, it's sex. I'm like, no. Think about it this way. I had a relationship with, I call him a partner, right? I had a relationship with a partner. We did not have sex. We would cuddle, smoke, and brainstorm. That was what we did. If I was in a traditional monogamous relationship,
that would not be okay.
I would not be allowed to have that.
Right.
But because I created a space for me where I get to show up however I want to, with whomever I want to, as long as it serves me, as long as I can look myself in the mirror and say, I'm happy with what I did today. I was able to have that relationship. And out of that came so many amazing moments and things. And like this person also like gave me perspective when I was fighting with my primary. He's like, yo, you're overreacting.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
he was like your therapist for your main
yeah,
relationship.
like he's like, listen, you are being real crazy right now.
Yeah.
Like you got to chill. This dude is not what he meant. And it's like, who else, this person you would think has like skin in the game to tell
incentive
me.
To tell you opposite,
to tell me
right.
otherwise. But here he is like telling me like, hey, chill.
And
you
that,
know?
Well, it's kind of like how are you with your friends, right? We all have friendships. Like ideally they have our best interests in mind. Sometimes they don't, but more often than not they do. And it's like think about almost every traditional relationship today. Like I know people that even if you went to lunch with a member of the opposite sex, it would be hell breaking loose.
Yeah.
Like,
well, what does she look like? Is she cute? Like, I don't know how many times, even for me as a poker player, right? When I've had backers, like they've legit had to tell their wife that, no, she's ugly.
Yes,
she's
that's so
like
unhealthy.
300
Wow.
pounds.
happens all the time. Yep.
And then I had a backer for a year and a half. His wife was like totally fine. Like, you know, he backed me in poker, this and that. Some article came up about me and he was in the same tournament. So she found a picture of me and what do you think she did? The very next trip she was there. She was like, oh, so nice to finally meet you, you know? And I was just like, oh, hey. And I was there with my boyfriend, but
You're misinterpreting it. She was interested.
But it's just, that is and then when you tell people that you're poly, this is the best. They think that you're out to get their husband. You know, like I get that all the time. Or they think that I'm trying to like rope them into some cult.
Yeah, or you're interested in everything that walks and talks.
Yeah.
Right? Like
the ironic thing is like I've played the other woman before I was being honest with who I wanted and with myself and how I wanted to show up. I was the other woman when I was monogamous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the ironic thing.
Everyone at home who doesn't necessarily think that this makes a whole lot of sense, think about what this does. It removes the number one reason that relationships fall apart. If you think about all of your past relationships, all the past relationships of your friends that are not specifically telling you, hey, I'm poly or whatever. What happened? Oh, he cheated. Oh, she was jealous all the time, or all that stuff. Like if you
controlling, possessive, manipulative,
if you remove the ability for that to even rear its head.
Yeah.
Think about how much more you can explore because of that.
Well, let's unpack this ancestrally, though.
Well, see, that's the thing too. Is like you're not removing the opportunity for it to rear its ugly head. You're presenting a space for you to address it when those things do happen, because jealousy, insecurities, those things happen in every relationship, whether you're poly or monogamous or whether you've been with someone for 30 years or 30 days. It doesn't matter. Those things happen. But now you're just creating a space for you to address them honestly and move past them. Like, here, I have these feelings. This is what's happening. Process, move the fuck on.
Well, I think also what Brian was trying to say, there's definitely a spectrum of this, and the more you focus on it, the more you have these ideas and expectations.
Yeah.
The more you find reasons why this person is doing that, or that you're looking at that person, or you're attracted to this person, all this BS that comes up, like, oh, your assistant is cute, or like just the nonsense that happens in our modern world in relationships. Like, if you can't open up, one, be honest, one, understand ancestrally, which was about what we're about to get into, understand like why humans are attracted to almost everything that they're attracted to, right? Like, because we have to propagate the species. But like, if you understand these things, then maybe you can have a healthy relationship with them for you in your mind, but also for your partners, right?
Right.
And so ancestrally though, why, Brent and Ebony, can you put any attractive female in front of me and I'll be like, I like you? Tell me why that is. Tell me why that is.
You gotta extend your.
Well, no, I'm asking you guys. I want you guys to give me some feedback. What do you think?
Why do I think you're gonna like any attractive female I put in front of you?
Yeah. What benefit would that infer to me as an animal?
Lineage.
Yeah. You obviously you want to spread your seed. You want to increase. I was gonna make a joke about why you specifically, but I skipped it.
Okay.
Please do.
No. This is the Ancestral Podcast. We're talking about our ancestors. Colin used the you as a euphemism. I'm not gonna punish him for that. You see. Okay, I want my children to have the biggest chance to produce more children, so I want the most attractive partner that I can pick, so that, in theory, our children are the most attractive, and they continue to procreate even more.
But what about if you put 10 attractive females in front of me, and I would be, or even on varying scales?
I don't think you could do it.
No, listen.
Maybe 2?
Listen. Why? Oh, I could do 10, but we'll move on from that. Maybe not at the same time, but sequentially. If it was 10 females of varying levels, like, I don't really like rating people on a number scale, but if you had to for this illustration, say we had like 10s and we had even, I don't know, 5s maybe.
We can have one for each number. We'll
no,
go halfway down
ones,
to 5.
there's going to be a limit, for almost everybody, right?
Ancestrally, why is there a limit?
Well, in some, you might be able to find examples where there isn't. Like in some cultures, the Aztecs, like if you were fat, you were attractive. So there was a lot of guys getting it on with really fat, affluent females because that was a attractive trait in their culture.
Yeah,
right?
it's culturally. It just depends.
Right. But again, why though? Okay. Let's not go too off tangent. I know it's fun to, but why would I be incentivized as an animal to basically be attractive to a lot of different females and want to have a lot of sex? Like, why would I want to do that? We all want to do that, really. Anytime most humans can have access to an attractive mate to have sex, we try to take advantage of that. Why do we do that? Why would we do that 15,000 years ago? Why would that benefit our species? Like, what do you think?
Well, the primary reason is procreation, but
right.
Are you getting at something else? You think
well,
there's something else I'm missing?
Survival and
right.
tribe.
But, what did we do before we had hospitals? How do you have babies? Mothers died a lot.
Yeah.
Babies died a lot.
Mm-hmm.
They once a hunter-gatherer child, I think, reached the age of like every step of the way, but 7, 13, 15. When you reach 15 in the wild, you like double your life expectancy because you've already gotten through like a really tough period of time to even survive, right? So our species, just like every species, right? We are designed to try to have as much sex as possible so we can have as many babies as possible so that at least one out of maybe even the 10 women we impregnate, one survives. And then goes on and on and on, right? And we don't really know what the survival rates of infants are. We do know that there was a lot of infant mortality, but like it's literally the opposite of what it is today. Like today, most babies survive, right? Back then, most babies probably didn't survive. Yeah. So we had to have a lot of sex, and every single time from a natural selection point of view, you take your genes and you mix it with a different partner. Well, that's how evolution works, because if I have it with this person and our genes go together to make this one individual, that baby may or may not survive the environment as well as another one that had different genes. So that's where you get all the genetic differentiation that increases the likelihood that humans keep living in the future. And when you can understand that this is why your boyfriend, girls, looks at the girl that walking by,
wow.
has a rubber neck, or while even the females are attracted to maybe the bad boys, the alpha males, or whatever for ladies. Like, this is why humans are always going to be attracted, like always going to be attracted to members of the opposite sex that they find attractive, right? It's never going to go away. You're never going to like jealousy it out of someone or manipulate it out of someone. It's always going to be there. The only thing you can do is encourage them to be honest with you about it and have open, honest discussions. And I guess that's what you should just do. I don't know what else you can do. Like that's what you have to do, right? Or I guess I would say, or you're going to make it worse and you're going to make them lie to you about it.
Yeah. So I think, especially nowadays, people look at the idea of marriage, right? And they think of it from today's terms, like what it's supposed to be today. And
Which
it's like
generally comes with a divorce.
Well, and then it's like, well, like, let's think about like the institution of marriage. Like, it was to make families stronger. It was property. Women were property.
Well,
and it was a man had a daughter and he could expand his capital by marrying her off. And, and then if he had a son, then he could, it was like you get the dowry and you get all of this nonsense. And it was like, marriage was not this romantic thing where you put all of your hopes and dreams into that one person. And it was, you had a husband or a wife, and then you had a tribe. You had people around you that gave the things that you are now trying to put into your partner, right? Your companionship, your romance, you have the father, you have the mother, you have all of this pressure now that like we expect one person to carry, which is impossible. Mm-hmm. And as human beings, like we are built, like we have like a limitless capacity for love. Like you think about, you don't just have one friend. You don't just have, like, I have multiple children. Do I just love one and not the other? It should be the
same with relationships.
It's the same idea. Like if I don't talk to my daughter, if I go out of town or she goes out of town for like a couple days and we don't talk, do I think she ran off and found another mother?
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me? Oh, who's that woman you're talking to? Is she your new mom?
She looks like she's slightly older than me. What are you thinking?
So it's like, why do we do that with our partners? Why do we put these unrealistic expectations and say, I need you to be the provider. I need you to be my companion. I
Yep.
need you to be my best friend. I need you to be
A lot of times my therapist.
Yeah, my therapist.
Yep.
You're my coworker sometimes because I need you to help me with work stuff.
Right.
You're the father
My business
or
partner.
the mother. Yeah, it's a one-stop shop and you should be everything.
Yep.
What?
Yep.
No.
So let's do a real quick ancestral breakdown. So you mentioned marriage. Now, marriage is actually a modern day invention, even with like a lot of the hunter-gatherers that because there are some wild peoples around the world that do have marriage, but I think a lot of that, my theory is a lot of that is actually a modern day influence.
Right.
Because they've been reached by society and like, missionaries go and do all these things. But the truest form of the wild human was a tribe of like, it could be 10 to 20 people, and we would be nomadic. So we'd walk around, and those people would basically be our family our entire lives.
Yeah.
And so even as humans were evolving and building our species over the planet Earth, there would be times where we wouldn't even see another group of humans our entire lives.
Yeah.
Right. Then as we had like, 1 billion people on Earth and then 2 billion, like as things grew, we became more into contact with people. And that's actually when a lot of the marriage stuff came into play, because this is it. The number one reason that marriage was created, it was because it was paternity concern for the men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So before you could test whose child was whose, right? The only way you can control that is by saying, you're my wife. You don't have sex with anybody else.
Right.
Therefore, I know that the baby that comes out of you is my son or heir, basically. And then all my property goes to him or her.
Right.
That is the number one reason. It was to protect property when humans started settling down and, farming and hoarding resources and doing and then war and then money and all the things that happened. That is not our natural state, though, in the wild, right?
The natural was every man and woman would just they would sleep together, right? And then
decide on who they would sleep with if they wanted to.
If they wanted to. And if a woman, it would behoove her to have sex with multiple men so that way when she got pregnant, she had a child, every single one of them had a vested interest for the health and the survival of that child.
Yep.
And when you have especially because life was so precious and life expectancy was nothing compared to now. So I've had sex with 5 men and one of them goes off and dies. Well, guess what? There's still 4 men that have a vested interest in this child to survive and thrive.
Yep.
And we have just steered so far away from that now.
Yeah, and that's obviously a huge topic to go down. A really good book to read on the subject is actually Sex at Dawn. Another book to read that's good about just kind of polyamory and things like that is Sex 3.0. These are both books I recommend to give you kind of a base primer into some of these ideas we're talking about. But fundamentally, our relationships today are mismatched to our biology. That's kind of the number one thing. And that's why, like Brent said, divorce rate is 50, 60% at this point.
Right.
Like marriage typically doesn't work. And I mean, there's so many things we can get into, but it's like, if you think about the fact that there's like a honeymoon period for almost every couple, right?
It's so fun.
Right. But it goes up and then it comes down, right?
Yeah.
And for a lot of them, I've seen a lot of people where it's like 3 to 4 years where like, that they get to that point where they're starting to like really want to sleep with other people. They really want to be with other people. All the expectations that they have basically causes them to break up and start all over again.
Yeah.
Right? Now,
they are serial monogamous.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what they are. And if you think about it, it makes sense from a procreating point of view, though. You can get someone pregnant because in the beginning, all you want to do is have sex all the time. That's the honeymoon period. And then you have a baby that comes, X period of time after. And then you can basically raise that baby to get through the hardest part of being a child in the wild, when you're really young, right? And then you go out and do it with someone else. Like it's the perfect way that Mother Nature programmed us to procreate and propagate the species, right? And then today, though, we try to slap a ring on it and say it's forever, and then we wonder why people end up cheating. In fact, I've seen some of the numbers. Women cheat just as much as men.
Oh,
Can you speak on that?
Yeah, for sure. Listen. This whole idea that women are just like, oh, we're like these perfect angel beings. Fuck that. Come on.
Yeah.
We are just as, if not more so, getting in there the way that men are. And I think this also speaks to societal pressures also because women have this shame attached to it. Whereas
because you get called a slut.
Men get celebrated by other men. Oh, he's the man, and women say, oh, player, he's a player, right? But they don't say it with the same amount of disdain that they would if oh, she's kind of slutty, or she's a hoe, or she sleeps around. It's this ironic, fucking cruel twist that men want a woman to show up and know what she's doing in the bedroom, but they want a virgin, or they want someone who's only been with one person, right? And it's like, but she better know all these, she better do some somersaults in the bedroom. She better like know how to deep throat, like all of these expectations. And men are like, oh, go out and sow your oats, you know, like go out and
women
get
shame
experience.
women even more than men shame women, right?
It's
and
ridiculous.
that's sexual competition.
Yeah.
It's one way women do it.
Because we are raised to compete, and while men are raised to compete with one another, and also obviously they want the attention of women, women are just raised to compete for the attention of men, not compete for themselves. So we're raised to think like you have to, you know, put some seeds of doubt against this woman.
Yeah, it's a different form of competition. Like men typically would compete like being obviously bigger, stronger, more liked by people, and then even a better hunter, the more food you could provide, things like that. Whereas women would actually try to, I mean, again,
there's
like
a lot of
like
sabotage.
you guys buy you guys buy like fancy bags and jewelry that guys don't even pay attention to.
Yeah.
You literally do it to compete with other women, and that's something a lot of females don't understand.
Yeah.
Right?
Like call it you guys, you specifically.
Well, you know what? I will say, like, that's the thing is, like, for me, I'm super confident, and I will, when I see a woman doing her thing, like, I'm gonna go right up to her and tell her, like, you're killing it, you know. And I have no qualms about expressing, like, when I see someone that I think is doing a bang up job on something, I'm going to tell them, man or woman.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of women that have a hard time with that.
Well, that's insecurity too, Rani.
You know? Well, yeah, but it's also this idea of like, well, why is she telling me
But
that?
it's also, but this is a good topic to go down too. It's the idea of scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
And so wild humans didn't really have that idea. In fact, I just read Catching Fire, which is about kind of human evolution and how cooking and fire and being able to control fire was a big part of evolution. And he talks about how there's a lot of modern day hunter-gatherers where they do have marriage, but the primary reason you have marriage is because you want to have someone that will cook for you, right? And so the men would actually a lot of times not care if women slept around, but you can never cook for another man because in some cultures, if you literally gave a man food, you're basically saying, I'm now in a relationship with you and we're going to have sex now. Like, because you gave him like a bite of food. And so, and like, it's just crazy, like these different things that our species created to like survive in the wild.
Hit on waitresses all the time.
Oh my God.
You handed me that food. Here's my number.
So it's this idea though, that from a sex perspective, like there's scarcity because this is my guy or this is my girl and no one else can have him or her or whatever. Like that causes so much of insecurity, jealousy, whatever. But it's like, I've always thought about when I started thinking about like poly and this idea that if you didn't make all these rules around someone, why would they ever need to leave you? If you don't have it so that if you ended up being with someone else, even if it was like a one-time thing or whatever, that it would end everything, then you could be honest with me. We would actually probably have a stronger relationship.
Right.
And you could literally stay with me for the rest of your life and not feel, again, like FOMO or grass is green or whatever, because maybe you could indulge in things from time to time. And I feel like if most people had the choice between being with someone they really care about forever and then eventually basically breaking down because of all the expectations, or being with someone you care about forever and having something that's a little bit more open and understanding to our biology and like actually being able to be together forever.
Right.
Why would people not choose the latter every single time? But it's really hard to do.
It's a lot of ego stuff, right?
And society conditioning us.
Here, perfect example. My first, the guy who actually played catalyst for me, like diving deep into all of my
self-exploration,
everything. Yeah. He and we met and it was casual. We dated. I was so enthralled with him, so in love. And we gave each other, we were present 100% of the time. When we were together, we did not spend time together unless we could give 100% of our attention to one another. It was the first guy that I was with where I really learned that, like, hey, when we show up, we're not on our phones. I never looked at my phone. We never had the TV on. We were always present. And I fell in love with him. And he wasn't seeing anyone else. But because we hadn't had the discussion of like what was happening with us, I like stayed like dating other people. As a woman, I was like, oh, I need to have this conversation with him of like, where is this going? Mm-hmm. And I remember him specifically saying to me, he goes, okay, Ebony, if you want a title, I'll give you the title. But I want you to tell me what's going to change between us if you get the title. He's like, I'm honest with you. You're the only person I'm with. I think you're seeing other people. He goes, I give you 100% of my time when I can. I don't ignore you. I respect you. He goes, what is going to change if you have the title? I couldn't think of one fucking thing.
Was he not open to seeing other people?
Facebook status? Come on.
No, he said that he just wanted to devote all his attention to me. And that's what it was. And he said the minute that his attention would wanted to go elsewhere, he would tell me. And so we dated for 2.5 years. And I remember going out to dinner with my girlfriends and like telling them like, oh no, like we're open. And they're like, oh, so you don't really love him? I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm like, yeah. I love him so much and I know what he and I have, that I don't care what he has with anyone else, because all that matters is how we show up for each other. And the experiences I get with him mean so much to me. And that if he comes to me and he tells me that he has something more that makes him happier, why would I ever want to deny him that? Like, if I truly love someone, I want them to truly be happy. So if he comes to me and tells me like, hey, this isn't filling my love cup up anymore. This isn't giving me everything I want. And in fact, I found something else that makes me happier. Why am I going to tell him no? That's not love. That's not unconditional love. That's control. Like, if you really want someone to be happy, like, let them figure out what makes them happy. And if you can contribute to that happiness, fantastic. If you can't, it's time to move on.
It's also, I think, the difference between, like I said, like, you could have relationships like that would actually last.
Yeah.
And statistically, most relationships don't last.
Yeah.
Like, literally, they don't last, right?
Yeah, of course.
But if it was different, I mean, I think a lot of relationships, if people had a certain kind of, even if it wasn't a sexual freedom, a lot of relationships don't even have the freedom to have other friends that are members of the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Like, and I think, like, when I hear that from relationships, I'm like, you literally have a timer counting down how long that's going to last,
or
right? Like, it never works.
You see a Facebook post that's like, oh, I'm just going to assume if you're checking out another girl, you don't want those eyes anymore. And like, you'll see like somebody share that and it's like, I'm sorry.
I will say, I'm going to do some generalizations, and I know like it's not PC anymore to do generalizations, but a lot of women tend to think that like if a man acts on his jealousy or shows that he's jealous, it proves that he loves them. And I'm just like, I call bullshit, dude. It's a no. It's a no for me.
Yeah.
Like,
if anything, it proves that he maybe is insecure, or he has an unhealthy relationship with his attachment to you, or his idea that he owns you or controls you or whatever. Right. If anything, it shows all negatives. It doesn't show positives. Right. Now, what about, let's just go to some mistakes. Like, I want to get, because that's like more poly, open, how to think about things.
Yeah, I don't want people to think that this whole podcast is like poly.
This is why it should be this way.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, I just, my biggest thing is like, I want people to do what's right for them. And when you can look at yourself in the mirror and show up honestly for yourself first, how you show up in relationships, whether that's poly, monogamous, single, celibate, whatever, however you're showing up, you know that you're showing up 100% for yourself, and you're giving yourself and your partner or partners exactly what you should, because it's honest. And that's it. Like, that's my biggest thing is like, I'm like, poly's not for everyone. Monogamy's not for everyone. Like, when people are like, oh, how's poly working out for you? I'm like, oh, how's monogamy working out for you? Like, it doesn't matter. Just do what's right for you.
But also, what I would, an addendum to that, I would say, like, I want people to take this kind of information and be successful in their life. If that means that they try poly, or they stay monogamous, but they maybe open their mind a little bit, or they have a different monogamous relationship, or whatever it is, you need to understand these first principles. You need to understand why we're always going to be attracted to members of the opposite sex. You need to understand why jealousy and these other toxic things that are creation of society really sabotage most people. I mean, think about the damage it's done. Not only the money that's lost to lawyers and all the bullshit that goes along with marriage, right? But think about the kids that are damaged and the toxicity that is bred from people trying to reconcile the bullshit in their marriage that like broke down, and like now it's me versus him and you blaming him and I talk bad about dad in front of her and whatever. Like, there is so much garbage that goes on in our culture that's a result of really mismatched ideas about relationships. So like, I would say that, you don't have to do poly, but you better fucking understand why you are who you are.
It's about questioning why you're doing what you're doing, not just accepting it at face value. Like, you got raised, you should be
not accepting just what your parents told you or whatever.
Traditionally monogamous, and this is what you're supposed to do. Like, I think a lot of people go through life just doing what they think they should do without ever questioning why they're doing it. And if you get to the heart of who you are as a person and why you're doing it, doing things that you're doing, what your purpose is, what you actually want out of life, then you figure out like, does this actually serve me as an individual? Does this serve me as a person? And am I serving the people in my life? And if the answer is no, you need to reevaluate. And I do think expanding your horizons and learning about other things, such as polyamory, will for sure make you a better partner, even if you truly decide to buckle down into monogamy.
And when you ignore your biology, you are always going to pay a price in some way. So you need to at least understand the reasons why we all do the things. And then think about for your partner. The better you understand your partner, the better you can talk to, work with, and not fight your significant other. Yeah. Right? Like, so like for me, I just feel like these are things we must know. But what about people that are like, I'm 30, 35, I'm single, maybe I was in a few-year relationship, and now I'm back in the dating scene. Like, I'm a working professional. I don't have a ton of time. I don't want to just date like whoever's around me. I don't want to date my coworkers. Like, what can these people do? Maybe we can go with guys and girls. What are some mistakes they make? What are some strategies to get to meet more high-quality mates? And then, like, maybe even just like how we should approach dating from a more internally focused point of view.
Let me get a little more specific. First date, specifically. You're on a first date. What can you do to make that better? And then we'll go from there. But we'll start at the base number one thing.
Well, should we focus on guys, girls? I mean, what should we do?
It may be.
I think first date stuff is pretty universal, right?
Okay, go for it.
I think the biggest thing that you have to remember is that the person you're sitting across from is just as nervous as you are, wants this just as much as you do, or else he wouldn't be there, right? Mm-hmm. So stop thinking about what they want and be there thinking about what you want. Stop thinking you need to sell yourself. I think that people show up on dates thinking they need to prove their worth when the opposite is actually true. This person needs to prove their worth and value to you. Like, are you actually interested in this person? Instead of thinking, is this person interested in me? A lot of people show up on dates like worried what the other person is thinking instead of thinking about what you are actually thinking.
Well, how can we do this though? Because I mean, I think it's even in a networking setting or you're just talking to someone, you want people to kind of like you. You want to maybe like them. Like, so there's always going to be this kind of give and take to things. Like, how can we really go into this with, I mean, I would say just trying to get out of her head. Like, what can we do?
The biggest thing that I tell my clients is treat if you're a guy, treat every woman you encounter the same. Don't put any undue pressure. Flirt with anyone that is going to flirt back with, even if you have no interest, right? Because now you're practicing, you're executing, you're doing really well, and you're getting better at that. And then you'll know the difference between someone you're interested in and someone you're not. Unlike, oh, it's just someone who's giving me attention. So therefore, like, I need to go for this, you know? And people just think like, okay, if someone's like, this woman's a 10, now I have to.
You fail if you do
right.
that.
You put someone on a pedestal.
Yep.
And then you think you're not good enough. So you're second guessing every action, every decision, every word that's coming out of your mouth, and you're not being yourself. You're giving this glossed over version that doesn't work. Like, and who does that serve?
Yeah. I have a good thing that guys can do. Obviously being a guy, I have some experience. So the number, because I remember when I moved to Austin, single, whatever, it was hard for me to get into the frame of mind of like being social and outgoing to people I don't know. I'm a little bit more of an introvert unless I know people, right? But guys, I'm telling you, every time you go to a coffee bar or restaurant, you're taking a flight, anytime you're dealing with customer service people that have to be nice to you, use that as an opportunity to just say, I'm going to try to make this person smile, or I'm just going to try to brighten this person's day up a little bit. You do that as your default, and I still don't even have this as my default. I should probably take my own advice with this, but
Colin's default is a little bit aggressive.
So that is the best opportunity to just work on your social skills.
Yeah.
And that might be good for females too, if you're just like, again, you're not in that social mindset, right?
For everyone. I think it's slightly different for females because we have this idea of safety and messaging and whatnot. I am very much in that camp of every person I encounter, I try to brighten their day. Whether it's someone bagging my groceries, I will talk to them and use if they have a name tag, fucking say their name. Use that as an opportunity to communicate and try and, like you said, make someone smile. And that goes such a long distance when it comes to the way that you communicate and the way that you can, like, hey, like, I'm going to make you smile today and you're going to remember me and you're going to feel some type of way about me and it's going to be all good.
So how do you reconcile, like they always tell you, especially for guys you hear a lot, like be interested in the person, right? Ask them questions, do that. Like that's definitely a balance though, because you can get to a point where they literally just talk at you the whole time. And then you don't really sell yourself in any way, or they don't know anything about you. And I think sometimes it's actually appropriate, but I think other times you have to put in some of who you are, your personality, and you have to kind of like brand yourself a little bit, especially on a first date. Like they need to remember you for something, right?
Right.
Because you don't want to be an interview. But how do you balance
Colin's ever
that?
had a problem talking about himself on a first date?
I think he's had a problem not talking about himself on a first date.
You guys are full of shit.
No, so I think especially for men, a first date is the time for like the man to kind of be like the ping pong, right?
Ping pong?
Yeah, like let the woman give her space to talk about herself, make her laugh though, joke around with her, and use your immediate assessment abilities to read the situation. Like if you're joking with her and she's obviously not into that, well, is this someone that
I have no shot at that point.
But think about it then. Be like, oh, okay, well, this is clearly not someone I can be with long term at all, because they can't take a joke. If that's the type of, if you like to make jokes, et cetera, but just decide you're going to spend the rest of the time like just trying to have as much fun as you can, and like, it is what it is.
Yeah, shouldn't the goal be just to like really kind of have a good time anyways, and not even think about that kind of stuff?
Yeah, but that's the thing is like how many people. Like, my thing is always, anytime I go on first dates, I am the queen. I fucking knock it out of the park on first dates. I have never not had a first date where they're not asking for a second. 100%. So many guys have told me, they're like, you make me feel so special. Like, I'm the only person in the world. And I'm like, yeah, buddy, that's that communication skill. Like,
I've made somebody feel that way 5 times this week.
I'm like, I did that 10 times today before we even had this date, but my goal is to just show up and be 100% present for that person and give 100% of myself.
Well, but how do guys do that? Because most girls won't even do that.
Yeah, right? I got you, Colin. Here's the right way. Because I'm going to go back to your original question where you're like, you need to learn about them, but also you need them to learn about you. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? And this is how I always used to do it. My questions would be super open-ended, but they would be framed in such a way that we were talking specifically about our interaction. So I would say, okay, so what do I need to know about you? What is going to be something that we're going to enjoy going forward? What do you hope you accomplish past today with me, or whatever? Just insert yourself into the conversation, into the thought, into the I don't want to call it fantasy, but
you're
what they're thinking in their head. Yeah, you just frame it as part of the microcosm of the date, and then automatically you'll give feedback. The person's not going to be talking about themselves the whole time because you said, what do I need to know? Well, what I think about you is maybe this. I don't know. Are you that way? And so you don't get the interview questions.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent way to look at it, because what you're doing is now you're playing catalyst for your date to picture what it's like to be with you in any capacity, regardless if the question is so simple as to like, oh, like what are we going to have for dessert? Something like that. Instead of like, what are you going to have? Or what, now it's a we, or it's an interactive thing. And it makes it much more enjoyable. And what it does is it sets the tone for creativity for your date to think about you in regards to her. I'm going to
pretend I'm just an average guy listening to this show, and I still don't know what to do or say, because I actually feel that way right now. So I still don't know really what to do or say. A lot of my generation that grew up with computers, right? We want a 10-step list. We want like to memorize the questions we should ask. Okay. Right? We want an actionable guidebook, right? And like a lot of the things you're talking about, they're definitely good theory things, and they're things that like if you're doing this on a regular basis, you're gonna probably learn these, get good at them, whatever. But like, what is something that's very specific that like someone could literally do next week on the date they're going on? They're going for coffee. They're going to meet someone they met on Tinder or whatever it is, or a friend or whatever. And like, what does that look like? Like, I go buy her coffee. We sit down.
Before Ebony answers this question,
what's the first thing I say? I say, hey.
I'm going to tell you, if you have a guidebook, it's going to be a guidebook for a specific type of individual. It's not the same.
But there's got to be universals.
Think about even playing poker. You have a hand, and you're playing that hand against a certain person. You have to play it differently every time. There's no checklist of always raise.
This is my counterpoint to that.
You do have a set. You have, this is where I start, and then you vary depending on the situation.
Well, yeah.
So I do think that you can have like a, here's where I start.
Okay, so one, you're gonna coach me through a coffee session in my head.
I'll be the girl.
Before we get to that, listen. There are 21 questions that they've done research that they were able to say, we can get someone to feel like they known each other for years in 21 questions. Like you can probably Google it.
I did that with Raphael, and I did that on our third date.
So like, why can't we use some of those? Or,
you absolutely can, and you should.
Okay.
Actually, because those types of questions, they tackle any wall that person may have.
And they're broad, so they can apply to anybody.
Yeah,
right?
and you can use them, and it feels like, it's like, oh my goodness, he was really listening and he really cared and he really wanted to know about me. That's the goal of it, right? I think so. Like, you're in a coffee shop date, be charismatic to the person taking the order. Always be friendly to everyone around you.
Yeah. That's a huge signal for guys. Yeah. But we have 21 questions. Like, let's just say that, and we memorize them.
Okay.
We don't want to go into this coffee date and be like, all right. And then like, what's your biggest dream in 10 years? Like, and then they're just like, who is this guy? Right. So it's like, you need to obviously organically get them into the conversation. Right. Now, that aside, that's one strategy. Let's say I'm meeting someone for coffee. We're in downtown Austin. There's some cool coffee bars, like hipster coffee shops, whatever. I get my little espresso. I signal that I don't get any cream in it. Like, I do all that stuff, right? I ask her what she wants. She wants a chai latte. I don't make any judgments, even though she's getting sugar in it, right? And so,
wow.
And so, where do I go? Hey, listen, we got to paint a picture for people. Where do I go from here?
Where would Colin go?
No,
or where should Colin go?
Colin
listen, it's fun to make jokes.
He'd be like, well, I bought you a chai latte. It was great to meet you. I got to go.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. But for everyone else that is not as dogmatic about sugar as I am in that way, because I've been there. We've all been there. Any guy's been there, right? You've been single at some point and you're trying to figure it out. And actually, I was single before, like even Tinder and stuff, so it was a little bit different. So what do I do in an instance like that? And it's, let's say it's a Tinder date or whatever, or like an online date, right? You know a little bit about them, like basically their profile, right? And you order their drink or whatever, you sit down. What's next?
I think, okay, so a lot of it depends on how quickly the conversation escalated from like offline to in person, right?
Okay.
And how that's transpired. So if you've done like some traditional, like, okay, you got that out of the way, how was your day, etc.
So what you would basically pick up where you left off in the online conversation?
Yeah, and try and that way it's not like out of the blue.
Okay, let's say out of the blue. Let's make it simple.
Okay.
I mean, we literally sit down for coffee, right? I'm the guy, and I sit down, I got my drink. Look, I got a drink here, guys, if you can't see it, but I got a drink in front of me. She's sitting across from me, right? Beautiful. Maybe I'm a little nervous. Like, I'm already thinking about how I'm going to mess this up, maybe, or like I'm in my head, right?
Well, there you go. Number one.
Acknowledging.
Well, that could, yes, you could acknowledge it. It could be good one way.
Acknowledge that she took the time out to meet you. Like, hey, like, I'm glad that we were able to get together. Thanks for meeting
me. That's really good. I've never heard about that before. I've never done that. So that's actually kind of a cool thing.
Yeah.
But from a genuine, like, be genuine,
that is genuine.
But some people might think if it's a script, right? But I'm saying, like, you genuinely appreciate her coming to meet you.
If you actually are excited and if you are where you want to be, there is some element of gratitude there. So why not express that?
Yeah, I think conveying that is a big thing. I never even thought about to do that.
You start out with saying, hey, like,
people,
thanks for meeting.
They'll pick up on it if you're genuine too. Like, they'll appreciate it.
If you say that, like, if a guy tells me, hey, thanks for, I'm like, damn, you're welcome.
That's good.
Wall, like, first brick thrown out, you know? Like, if you start with a level of gratitude and you show that you're appreciative of this woman taking the time out of her day to be with you and you recognize her worth, now she's going to be like, okay.
So
now, next,
you could start with something like, even though you just ordered a drink with sugar in it, I still appreciate that you're here for me.
I feel like if I went there, it would be like womp, womp, womp. Like, I just don't think that would be a good strategy. But I'm saying, like, really though, let's try to picture this out. Because I literally have in my head a girl that I met at a coffee shop in Austin. I can literally visualize it.
How did that go?
I don't remember how it went, but I do know that like I'm visualizing myself going through this. Okay, we get the drinks. We sit down at the table. The hard-ass chair. She's right there in the booth. I'm in this chair over here. Even though I like the booth, I want to be in the booth, but it's not a big deal. So I'll move on past that, right? And then, thanks for meeting me. I give her that, what you just said. Again, the impetus is usually on me as a guy.
Right.
So, do you like your jab? Do you like cats? Do you like dogs? Like, there's so many ways to go. Where do you go from there?
I think one of my favorite things that I like to use is to talk about how someone's feeling in regards to something specific.
Okay, give me an example.
Right? So, like, how are you feeling today? Like, meeting up for me, was there excitement?
Well, if she gives you a bland statement, then you would have to maybe go deeper if you really wanted to go somewhere.
Yeah, or you could make a joke about it. Yeah, I wasn't too excited either. You know, something like that to like lighten up the mood. So you can ask something serious where you want specifics. If she shuts you down, you make a joke about it. And if she opens up, now you have a chance to dive deeper into the conversation. There's always a way to pivot. You can dive or you can joke.
Well, here's it. But do we have a pivot toolbox? Because I feel like these are instances where we would want to have maybe some rote things we could use as like icebreakers or conversation starters. Like there's definitely questions that you ask everyday people and like small talk conversations that goes nowhere. Everyone knows what those
So how do you change those?
Right. Well, and so what would the content be? Because a lot of what we do as humans is like, we have to, like my buddy Monsel, he loves to go deep and talk about feelings with people. So like within a few minutes of talking to them, he's like talking about like random feelings. I'd never go there. So for me, it feels so weird.
5 minutes
right.
Me. I was like,
so it's like,
I'm part of this Thirst Lounge, right? This Thirst Lounge 10, there's 10 of us. One of the guys, there was 5 of us talking. I was the only girl. It was me and 4 guys. And we were talking. And one of the guys shared a story that his family doesn't even know. None of his friends know. He said one person knows. And he goes, I can't even believe I just told you that.
How did you get there though?
Because I was sharing and I was facing it head on instead of like, ooh, like, I hope he wants to talk about me or talk about his feelings or sharing or whatever. I was just approaching it head on instead of like kind of skirting it. I think a lot of people, they rely on the fake conversations and wonder why it didn't go deep.
Well, but how do we get there though? Because again, I sat down with my coffee. She's sitting across from me. I express my gratitude. I think that's a really good thing that everybody should do, really. Even do with your friends and family, right? It'll probably change relationships. And then I got to go somewhere. I got to propose the next topic or the next thing to say.
What is your instinct?
No,
what would you say going on
Don't
autopilot?
put this back on me.
No,
I'm the guy who's sitting here like not sure where to go.
He wants the advice for sure. I think the biggest thing is like you have to remember like what drives you? Like what kind of conversations, when you look back on your conversations with your friends and your family, what are the conversations that meant the most to you? You know, what did you enjoy the most? Your relationships. Think about the things that matter to you and just go in that direction. Because at the end of the day, if you can't go in that direction with that person like today in any capacity, then chances are you can't go in that direction with that person. That person's not going to be for you. You're not a match, right? So just talk about ask something that you think this person can fit in to your life. They need to prove, right? It's proof. They need to prove that they can fit into your life in some capacity. Otherwise, why are you there?
All the guys are still frustrated because they don't know what to say.
Okay,
I'm telling you.
Here. I will give you a specific. You would
I
normally
want
ask somebody
specific because I want people to visualize this.
You know, where are you from? What do you do?
Okay, those are all the standard.
No, you're not going to say those. Those are bad. Okay.
Yeah.
So instead of what do you do, don't even ask what somebody does. Ask them why. That's a completely different question that they're not going to get. That is actually going to give you some insight into what that person
how
is.
did you get into your field of work or something? And then they can tell you a story about
what
how
would you rather tell somebody, that you own Wild Foods or why you got into Wild Foods and created that company?
I think another thing too, like a question I love is like, hey, what was your favorite part of the day so far?
Okay, see, that's what I'm trying to get at for the past 30 fucking minutes. Jesus. Okay. So yes.
Colin, we're not supposed to say fuck.
After we go.
Oh, oops. Sorry, guys.
No, he yelled at me one time. It was funny.
Yeah, I mean.
I think he knew when I was coming on here that it was shot.
It's already shot.
Yeah, we fucked that. We fucked that up.
Okay. So that's a good, because that can lead you in a lot of different places.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of like riff off different things. Now, we at least got that far. We got to one question.
Don't ask yes or no questions.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the
Always
biggest
open
thing.
ended.
Give me examples. Give me some yes or no, and then give me an open-ended question example. An exact thing.
Oh, were you busy today? Yes or no?
Oh, exactly.
You know?
Terrible.
Yeah, horrible. Like, man, how busy was your day today? You know? Or if you knew the person was off, like, how much did you enjoy your day off today?
But even what do you do for a living? It's like you either answer binary, you answer one thing, right?
That's why
Yeah.
you ask why, not what.
Okay, well, so what does that look like?
Oh,
why
yeah. So
why are you a
So I know that
horse trainer?
You're in data entry.
Right.
But what does that even mean? Like, what does your day look like?
This is when I say, yeah, what do you do on a daily basis?
Yeah.
And you know what most people do? They're like, oh, I work on computers. And I'm like, yeah, but so like you get to work at 9 a.m. and you literally just like work on a computer all day. Like I want to paint a picture of what that looks like. And you just kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think the habit here to cultivate is really like get deep into what they do and get interested in the things that most people are designed to not even talk about. Most people are used to small talk. So they default to answering these blanket questions with like one thing and then just moving on, right?
We're not talking about the weather. I really want to know about who you are, what makes you tick, what you do every day, because what you do every day shows who you are as a person.
It also gives you infinite content to talk about. And people will open up when they really feel like you're interested.
You just have to break the autopilot. If somebody's answering your questions on autopilot, you're never going to get to know them.
Well, how would you break?
Also, if you're asking questions on autopilot
same thing,
you wonder why it's not a deeper conversation, like, are you present? Are you asking questions, waiting to ask another question? Are you asking questions with the intent to actually listen? That's what I think people have to break the habit. That's the habit that guys have to break.
But that's really hard if we just say break that habit. So that's why I feel like there's definitely a combination of doing a little bit of prep, maybe having some rote ideas, but then like practicing getting good and just like finding opportunities to like evolve. I mean, what's like the one thing we could do? I know that if we just kind of like ask someone why, if you just always made the point of asking someone why, you could get them from like a question about the weather to like talking about the grandmother that died or something. Like literally why will just lead you there. So like maybe just getting in the habit of like asking why or how or what to really show like in words what it is instead of just like some broad vague answer that most people default to.
This is what I like to say. It's show the work time, right? Like in
what does that mean?
Like, okay, so like you in math, right? Like you,
once
you got to like a harder level, like once you got to calculus, you couldn't just show the answer.
Right.
Half of the correct question was showing the work. That's part of the thing of like, you really want to know what makes this person like, okay, what does your day look like? And show me the work. Now I'm vested in your work. This is show the work time. This is that's half the battle.
I like that. That's a good thing. So make a point to show the work, as in get them to show you.
Not just tell you.
And explain you. Yeah, this thing they're trying to tell you.
Don't just give me the answer. Show me how you got that answer.
Okay, good. Let's, I want to talk about this a lot more, but I'm going to try to move on to the next thing. Like that. So that's a very specific example of just dating. And obviously that's from the male perspective.
Right.
You know, let's just say, how about from the female perspective? Because I think it's always glossed over because everyone just assumes women have it easy, like, you know, you just have to show up. But that's like so far from the truth, right? And also, how do women get better at selecting people that are better for them and that aren't just appealing to certain basic primal instincts that like might not actually be good for them in the long run? Like that's maybe a whole nother topic. But like, what can women do in just our current dating age to just like avoid some of the mistakes and just get better at like, if you are trying to find a partner, get better at finding a freaking partner.
Right. I think there's this idea, women are like, oh no, he's not my type.
Right. You have no idea, really. Your
type is working, right?
Like, oh, yeah, exactly.
Like, do you even know what your type is?
Yeah.
I've always been, I like to call myself an equal opportunity dater. If someone piques my interest, and I may not be traditionally attracted to them, but if they make me feel a certain way, they make me feel good, they pique my interest, I'm going to give them a chance. I know so many women who would never
judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
And I'm just
I've had a lot of equal opportunity daters in my life, I think.
I'm a huge equal opportunity dater.
Yeah.
I am, you see some of the guys I've dated and I get the whole, really, Ebony? And I'm like, dude, I really like how I feel.
Yeah, that's just our judgmental.
Like, yeah.
BS.
And I'm like, take your shit. That's what I tell people. I'm like, take your shit somewhere else because I have no space for that right now. I'm happy that this person does it for me and I don't need to explain that to anybody. But I think kind of like tackling the idea of like, a lot of women will put up with more than they should from a guy because society tells them they're a good match, right? Like if I'm a woman and I'm a 9 and I date another 9, I'm going to tolerate a lot more shit because people say that we're such a good couple because we're attractive together.
Yep.
Bullshit.
Yep. Mm-hmm. It's complete and utter facade. All exterior. So obviously that's one thing. Changing maybe how you perceive someone based on their looks or their job or whatever, and just dropping all that because like you find different people in every walk of life that look different, that are like just every possible variation. There's gonna be a big group of people in that demographic that don't work with you at all. In fact, I would say the majority of almost every demographic doesn't work for everybody. It's only a small percent of either one of those that is ever going to be a fit for you. So you should just be assuming that for the most part, like, you can't judge anything by anything, really. Right. You have to just give people a freaking chance and figure it out. So how can women figure it out? And how can they maybe do a little bit better at selecting on like first, second, third dates so they just don't like waste a lot of their time, you know?
I think women for sure need to trust their instincts
Instead of trying to force it.
Yeah, because they have this idea that they want, right?
Sure.
Picture like a puzzle piece, right? And they're looking for this puzzle piece. And they go out with this guy, and they've been looking for this puzzle piece for so long that now that they're like, it's borderline desperation, where they're just like, well, he doesn't fit at all, but it's a piece, right? So I'm going to change my puzzle to make this piece fit. And so many women do that. Like they will settle instead of really knowing what they want, fine-tuning what they want, and they'll compromise on a lot of things that they shouldn't, like the way that they're treated, the way that they're talked to. If they're affectionate and this person's not affectionate, like they'll just be like, well, it's fine. He's just not affectionate.
Well, so the flip side here though is that you do need to be flexible in some way. So the counterpoint is like not having too specific of a puzzle piece that you think it needs to be perfect fit.
You're not looking for perfect fit, but you are flexible, but you have a list of things that the buck stops here.
You're talking about like tolerating. So obviously from the negative end of the spectrum, like you should not ever be really sacrificing your standards, is what you're saying.
Of course, yeah.
But how do you then reconcile that with the idea of what we just talked about, how women tend to like check off all the boxes, like obviously looks, money, whatever, these things matter, and then say like, this guy fits all these. It's, this he doesn't or whatever.
They do the on paper thing, right? Like, oh, he's so great on paper. Yeah. Like he sounds good to my friends. When I talk about him, he's got it all. And they focus on that versus on how he makes them feel.
I'll just change these few core things about his personality over the time. No big deal.
Yeah, or the idea that you're going to change somebody.
Oh my God, that is
to.
Women, because women are nurturers,
Men
right?
do it too.
Yeah.
Women are nurturers, and we want to cultivate growth, right? So we look at someone and we fall in love with their potential. Women are the masters of doing that. They're like, oh my God, he could be this, little tweaks here, little tweaks there. And girlfriends, these are conversations that girlfriends have together. They're like, oh yeah, if you just like change the way he dresses and like maybe fix this about him, or if he got a nose job. I mean, these are like legit conversations that I've had with girlfriends. Like if he got a nose job, he'd be so hot. And I'm like, yeah, give it time. Stuff like that. Like it's this potential and like, oh, he's so smart. He could do this. He could, like, they're falling in love with this idea, and they think that once the man is in love with them, that they will have control and they can now mold him into their dream guy. And no, like that's not how it works.
What about the idea, I think we should visit, like, what are the first principles of a good relationship? Because it's like, it's literally everything we're talking about is literally what most people do. Guys are a little bit less, they don't care as much because as long as you walk and talk for a lot of guys, but women, they have to be more selective.
Like Colin said, put 10 women in front of him, he'll do them all in sequential order.
That's not what I said, but
pretty sure you can just back up this show.
Go back and listen. That's not what I said.
He said not all at once, but in sequential order.
I said I could. I didn't say I would.
Oh, sorry.
Right. Anyways, so many people are focused on the different variables, right? Of what they want in a person. But all I hear when you talk about that is like, I hear in my head, external validation, externally, external. It's like, what about the shit that actually makes a good relationship?
Yeah.
Because the money he makes, the car he drives, how he looks, none of that shit has anything to fucking do with the relationship and whether you can actually get along spending time together. And I feel like they should actually be reversed. All that other stuff should be a bonus only if you figured out you can even spend time with this person.
Yeah.
What does that look like? What are the things we should actually be looking for in relationships? Like, how do we determine if someone's an actual match so that we actually want to spend a large percentage of our life with them?
Are you comfortable with the silence with that person?
Okay.
Is it uncomfortable silence when there's a lull in the conversation? Is it awkward? Are you searching or grasping for things to say, or are you comfortable in the silence? That is a big sign that you can actually be with that person. If one of my biggest things is I tell people, I'm like, can you be alone? Can your partner be alone? Like,
and can you be alone?
Yeah. Like, if the answer is no, there's some unpacking that has to be done.
You shouldn't be adding a person to the mix. You're just going to screw things up.
Yeah. So it's like when I'm on a date, like sometimes silence is amazing. When people are like, oh, there was no lull in the conversation, there was no silence, there was nothing. It's like, okay, that's not always great, because sometimes silence is when is the most deafening, when like things come up. Because sometimes you can have a really good conversation with someone and you guys are just great conversationalists who have some things in common, but there's no compatibility. There's no romantic chemistry.
So what about a list of things that your best lovers, boyfriends, relationships, whatever, what are the things that made the relationship good? And what are some of the things on the other end of the spectrum that were either a resistance, a strain, or that were part of your failed relationships? Like the actual qualities of the things that they did and maybe parts of their personality.
Right.
All the other shit is just exterior shell. It means nothing really.
Attentiveness is
to you,
to me, and to me and the things I care about, whether that's my friends, my hair, my job, my emotions, how I'm showing up, different things, but actually not just going through the motions, because a lot of people, especially once they get into a relationship, they tend to just go through the motions. People stop dating once they get the commitment. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest problem, is you have to continuously court your partner. You have to. And when I think about my most successful relationships, they never stopped courting me. And I was always excited to see them. And when you just are like, oh, it's just understood that we're going to spend time on XYZ day. And when you get into this habit of this very expected schedule and there's nothing new and you're not like, oh, we're just hanging out, but you're not asking me to like, hey, I made plans for us to go here. Mm-hmm. You know, men need to be decisive and confident in their decisions and continue to court the women. That is like one of the biggest things.
Okay, so that seems like more of a long-term relationship thing. But like, what about the guys? I mean, what kind of qualities? And I would even say girls. I would even say just both sexes. What are things that people can do, ambiguous of sex, like that just make for a good relationship? Because if we can somehow figure out how to figure those out as early as possible, right, we can just do better in the long run.
Don't lose yourself. That's the biggest thing. Mm-hmm. People will they start dating someone and they become overly available to the point where they are now losing themselves. They sacrifice their experiences with their friends, with their loved ones, with themselves, alone time, whatever, because it's that scarcity mindset. Well, I have to do it. Like it's now or never. That creates a codependency that is unhealthy and is not sustainable. Mm-hmm. So whether it's short-term, long-term, if it's a first date or a second date, like you still need to be an individual. You still need to make time for yourself.
Life. I think everyone needs to have their own life.
You've got to have your own life. And also that's attractive.
Yeah.
For a mate, you know, like if I see someone that's got shit going on and they're actually doing stuff, now I'm like, oh, that's great.
Well, and the people that have a problem with that are not the people you want to date.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to hold you back. Like you want someone that's happy for your success, your independence, because they have it for themselves. And that's what I found. The only relationships that I've ever seen that last are people that have their own shit figured out.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most people don't. But it's like they say, you can't love someone else until you love yourself. Like, it's kind of true.
It's so true. Like, if you don't know how you love and how you want to be loved, how can you expect someone to like now know those things? Like, you can't go and be like, hey, I'm not sure how I want to be loved, but I know that I want you to love me.
And I don't know what I want out of life, but I'm, like, I expect you to do these things.
We're going to figure this out together.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So obviously independence is a big one for everybody. Like the more independent, the more self-aware, the more figured out your shit is, I think the better everyone's going to do. And in fact, I don't think you can even have a relationship without that. Yeah. But what are some other variables?
I'm living that. I mean, I'm living that right now. Like,
well, explain for us.
I may not have told this to listeners. I mentioned my girlfriend on a previous episode. Colin convinced me to move out here and she couldn't just up and come with me yet. Like that is, and I was like, okay, I'm going to be out here for like 6 weeks without you. And then you come out and meet me after that. Okay, great. It wasn't like it wasn't a problem. It wasn't I don't know if I can trust you.
It wasn't a fight
yourself like that. Nothing. No fight. No nothing.
It wasn't.
She was
coddling.
like, no, this is going to be really good for us. It's going to be really good for you.
Right.
Let's get it squared away and we're good to go.
Yeah.
And so now I'm out here.
The unfortunate thing is like you can't always know if the person's going to be like that in the beginning, and that's why I feel like we need to kind of just flip the entire paradigm. We need to try to figure out how to better understand how people like really are, not just like the facade they put on the first like month of dating or 2 months of dating or whatever. Like, because the reality is once you're with someone for 6 months or a year and the real character comes out, like that's why a lot of people are surprised. And then they fight through like trying to change people and change their habits and their behaviors or whatever. So independence is one, having your own life, being self-aware, like being your own person. What else can people look for in a mate? What can they try to, maybe questions to ask, things to find out? Like, what are some other qualities that they should look for in themselves too, though?
Right.
Like,
I think, so a thing that is kind of important, and I say kind of very sarcastically, is if the type of food you eat is not similar,
Oh,
yeah, that's actually a big one. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're a vegan and the guy, like you go to date a carnivore
And
who's
you're
just
judging
like,
him
no,
every time he's eating meat.
and
Yeah.
it's like this battle.
Yeah.
That it can't go anywhere.
Or if someone doesn't like to eat healthy and you're
Right.
a health nut,
Yeah.
no way, never going to work ever.
Or if someone
they-
likes to work out a bunch.
Yep.
And it's like, you can have these differences, but like the person who works out a bunch, you need to be supportive of your partner not working out if that's what they're going to do. And are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Can you actually support someone who doesn't work out if you work out a lot?
Mhm.
Like, what does that look
Yep.
like for you?
What were you going to say, Brent?
Meat and potatoes. Like you have somebody who literally they just like chicken and nothing else, not because of a health reason, just because this is what I eat. And you are the opposite end. You're
Well, yeah,
a foodie.
if you're a foodie and
and
someone's
you're
not a
trying
foodie,
to
that's a
go-
big disconnect.
I literally didn't go on a second date with a guy because we went out to eat. First of all, he ordered his steak well done. I almost
that's it right
I-
there.
Get up and walk away.
so
Oh my God.
So we're going.
You know who
over
else does
we're
that?
going over the menu, and
Our
he
president.
says, "No, I order the same thing everywhere I go. It's just steak and mashed potatoes and mac and cheese or whatever." And I'm like, "So you don't like try new things?" He's like, "No, never."
Mm.
Yeah.
Never gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because I am an adventurer. Like, I want someone who's gonna try everything at least one time.
So this makes me think of something that I think is probably a big thing that you should try to find out from people. You guys are all familiar with growth versus fixed mindset,
Mhm.
correct? Okay, so Carol Dweck wrote a book called Mindset. I highly recommend reading it. But the basic premise is that you have a growth mindset if you believe that hard work will get you results. You have a fixed mindset if you believe that you're either good or bad at something. So like when in high school, when we'd all say, "Oh, I'm just not good at math."
Yeah.
That's a fixed mindset.
Yep.
And I had that. But then when I got out and I was in business and I had to get good at math, I was like, wow, I actually have gotten really good at math because I just do it, right? And so that was kind of a revelation for me. But I think you always, if you're a growth mindset person, you absolutely need to find a growth mindset
Yeah.
person, right?
Yeah.
Because it's almost like finding it's like a positive versus a negative person, right? Generally, people that are a little bit more fixed mindset are going to be a little bit more on the negative end of the spectrum. And if that's not you, you are always going to be clashing over something. And
Yep.
it's not going to be in a healthy way.
Yeah.
And at the very least, they're going to hold you back. And you probably are going to hold them back in some ways too. Like it's just going to be too much of an incongruence to actually last. So I think that's a big way. I mean, how can we figure that out if someone's kind of a growth versus fixed mindset? I think the adventure thing with the food,
Mhm.
that's a signal of someone's a fixed mindset.
It's so
Yeah.
representative of, and I said, okay, this is not someone that I can actually date.
Yeah.
Because my thing is, like Colin and I went to L'Atelier restaurant in Vegas, amazing, and had
Oh,
a
that's
10 course meal.
Joel Rubicon.
Yeah, that's the Robichon place.
Robichon, yeah.
Yeah.
For me, my experiences with food and dining and my interactions with people through food and dining is the adventure, part of the adventure for me.
Mhm.
And if I can't experience some of my favorite things with one of my favorite people, then what am I doing? You know, why am I going to why am I going to let this person become a favorite person if he can't even experience any of my favorite things?
Brent, your girlfriend likes to travel?
Yeah, she loves traveling. She tries literally every food. She doesn't care what it is. After I'll plop something down. She's like, "Oh, I've never had that before."
Well,
All right,
yeah, food obviously, because you're definitely, you appreciate food as much as I do,
Mhm.
but also travel.
Yeah.
Like, I would never see you being with someone that's like, I'll never travel, or I don't like travel, or whatever.
Or they
Like,
need to be in a 5-star hotel or something like that.
or
you
yeah,
know.
even a high maintenance traveler.
Yeah, well, or there's something behind that. It's not that they're necessarily high maintenance, but it's like, I can't go stay at an Airbnb because of these mental reservations about staying in a random place that I don't understand. So
You can't?
No.
You're saying
I can.
hypothetically?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm just saying
hypothetically.
hypothetically, like there are people that have the mindset of I don't care where I travel, I have to be at the Four Seasons or I have to be at a Hilton or whatever the case, and that's because that's the same comfort zone as the well done steak.
Yeah.
It's very, very similar. So
It's what they know. And people very rarely venture out from what they know. And those aren't my people.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lived in Baltimore. I've lived in here, Austin. Now I've lived in Florida. I've spent months in Vegas, and I will go on a trip. I will drop everything to travel. Somebody says, "Hey, I found a $100 flight to Costa Rica, but it's next week." All right, I'm in.
Yeah.
Like I'll
Yeah.
go. There's no thought to that.
Some
And if
people would never
somebody-
be able to reconcile that.
I-
Like, there's
I
girls that would never
literally-
like that.
I literally flew a few years ago. I went to a tournament in Madrid, and it was literally it was 12:30. I was laying on my couch watching TV, and I get a text from my girlfriend. She goes, "Hey, pack your bags. We're going to Madrid. Flight leaves at 6."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, gone for 10 days.
And if you're all about that life,
yeah,
you can't. A partner isn't about that. That's so tough.
You know
I think the biggest thing is like knowing what the type of person you are, right? Like if you're someone who likes consistency and likes routine, you're going to be thrown off by someone who wants adventure and crazy. Like, and there's going to be this question of like, am I good enough? Am I enough for this person? Mm-hmm. And it's not about you per se. It's just the fact that this person likes change, adventure, sporadic moments. And if you like routine, you just have to know like, hey, this is what I like. And I need someone that is similar in that way.
And some people, maybe you can't travel for whatever reason.
Right.
But if you still at least have the mindset. I'll give one more example. Just happens to be in my life because it's applicable. But an opportunity came up for me to go to Colombia. I was going there with a buddy of mine. His name's Ramsey. He was going for 3 weeks. I'm like, all right, I'm in. I say to my girlfriend, hey, let's go to Colombia. And she's like, well, I'm working. I can't. So I'm like, all right, I'm going for 3 weeks. Pick the maximum amount of time you can come with me and come. So she flew there by herself because I was already there for 10 days or whatever. And she was there for the second 10 days. And awesome. that was an example of she could not have physically done it.
But she did what she could.
Yeah, she did what she could and didn't make me feel bad about going for the extra time without her.
That is so important. I feel like a lot of people do this in relationships where like if they can't do something, their partner shouldn't be able to. Yeah. And that's
where I was going next, actually.
Yeah.
Literally what you just said was, we're not saying, obviously opposites attract. We're not saying you can't be with someone who maybe doesn't like new food or doesn't want to travel or whatever. Like you don't have to be the same in that respect.
But you should know what you can and can't deal with.
Yes.
Well, but also what I was going to say is you absolutely, positively cannot ever hold that person back from those things. Mm-hmm. Like you have to let people be their truest expression of who they are. Mm-hmm. And what's going to happen, and this is the thing that people don't understand that when they're jealous, it's like when you let someone be 100% themselves, you actually reduce the odds that they're ever going to stray or cheat or do any of the things you're afraid of, because they're going to come back to you and be so grateful that you support them. That is going to be the best anti-cheating, anti-jealousy, anti-lying thing you can ever do, is you let someone be as much of who they are as possible. Right?
The Alchemist says that, like, if you, I forgot the exact wording, but essentially it's like you just let this person, like, live their life, live their purpose, be the truest expression of themselves. Don't try and dim their light, and they will come back to you with so much appreciation that you gave them the space to be themselves.
Well, the whole book is about the treasure is in the place he started. That's what happened to the Alchemist. Like he went searching for this thing, and then he gets back to where he started, and then he finds the treasure there all along, right? Mm-hmm. And so that, I think, is a great place to wrap up. I mean, it's probably the best thing that you could do, because we were going to give an action item for our audience today, but I think the biggest thing you can do is to start finding ways to support your partner in whatever he or she does or likes to do. And like, even do things out of the blue you're not used to. Like, if your boyfriend wants to go out and hang out with his friends and usually begrudgingly let him, like, maybe suggest he go out this weekend with his friends. He'll be so surprised. He'll be like, oh my God, what just happened? He'll be like, I think it's Twilight Zone, right? But he will be so grateful to you, right? And then the reverse, like, same thing with like guys or girls or whatever. Like, there's a lot of examples. Like, the more you can support the things that each person in the relationship needs to do, the better everyone's going to be. And the more you're going to get the thing you want, right?
And I think, tapping into, since we're wrapping up, is just, if you're single and you're dating and whatever your experience is right now, just remember why you're doing it. You're doing it because these are things that you want. So if you get into a situation that you don't want, like, don't do it just for the sake of doing it. Like, that's, so many people will date someone just for the sake of dating.
Yeah.
Or finish the date just for the sake of finishing a date.
Yeah.
That's why one of the things that I never did was dinner on a first date. That's a long experience.
Yeah, they say you shouldn't do that.
If you find I'll say, look, meet me for coffee, meet me for a drink.
Yep.
And we'll have one. And we'll figure it out before that drink's over if we want to continue.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's definitely a good actionable item too for dating. And then also, if you are single, or if you're not and you just want help with your relationship, go to uncagedwithebony.com to get your free mini course on the most common dating mistakes made by both sexes. That is in the works. We will have that done by the end of the week. And so I'm pretty excited by that. And we're going to have Ebony back on the show in the future. We will talk about any questions, topics, anything you want us to talk about. The books.
So much today.
Yeah, there was a lot today.
This was not very ancestrally minded, other than we threw them in there a couple times.
No, we got there.
Definitely was. There. This is all based on human relationships. Like, and like
biology.
Right. We talked about shows before, Brent. What is the survival niche that humans figured out in nature?
No, yeah, they're the ones that figured out cooperation,
group survival.
Together,
that's literally our evolutionary niche. That's how we were able to dominate. And so, what are groups? A culmination of humans that have relationships together, right? Yeah. In fact, researchers even speculate that the reason our brains grew so big is because we had to manage the complexities of relationships. And so that's why you can have that 150 number, the magic tipping point number, right? That they've shown 150 is a number that most humans can kind of keep track of friend-wise. Because beyond that, your brain can't handle more people. Right. And you can't handle the dynamicness between them and things like that. And so there's some companies that actually organize business units around 150 people. Like they'll have a max of 150 employees in this one location and things like that. Because it's just better. Beyond that, you get a breakdown. So that's where we will wrap up today. Again, make sure you go over to uncagedwithebony.com, get her free mini course, and then make sure you like and subscribe. Let us know if we can help you in any way, questions, topics. You know, if you want to call in, if you want to say thanks, if you want to be on the show, we will feature guest questions, I guess, or statements, or whatever. Like, how do you usually do it?
If you check our show notes, we will have a place that you can leave us an actual voice message if you want.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, we should do that.
You can do that. You can email us. You can I don't know if we're going to have anybody live call in on the air. Let us know guests that you like. Let us know guests that you can get us. You know, if you say, hey, you guys should have Joe Rogan on the podcast, well, that's great. But if you can get Joe Rogan on our podcast, we'll happily have him.
Do it.
So, and otherwise, I'd like to also point out that we are not nutritional. Do we talk about nutrition at all?
Nutritional
no. We are
or
not sexual advisors.
Doctors.
All sex has inherent risks.
This is from personal experience.
Yes. We are not in any way recommending you be polyamorous. We're also not in any way recommending you be monogamous.
Yep.
Anything you do is your own choice.
Yes.
Please
do your own research.
Date at your own risk.
We are just recommending that you do what you want to do.
And use protection because
before you attack or wrap your whacker. This is important disclaimer information. Thank you.
Thanks again, guys. Peace out. And
we should really get that disclaimer down at some point.